Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, so it's end of our week for Reseller Revenues Wake Up and Resell. I wanted to announce, so we've made it to over 1,000 views on YouTube and over 100 subscribers, which is a really great solid start. So if you have not liked and subscribed, please do. We're using that as a tool for our Drive membership to the group so we can help more people. And today, Jake is going to talk to us about like military wear that he sells, which is a really interesting niche. He's also in a different country than we are, which also makes it super interesting. I get a lot of like military type medals and stuff from over there, but I've never seen any of the wares. So let me know when you're ready, Jake, and I'm just gonna let you have at it.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm gonna hope that like the microphone and everything's all right going about mobile because I can do it sort of uh in the field as it were. So hold on. Hello, hello. How are we
I don't
all
think we've
doing?
we've
Hello.
never seen you not all sitting at your desk.
I know I'm in the actual like little eBay shed thing that has been a long time coming. So yeah, I'll give a quick overview, I guess, of what Militaria sort of covers and everything, because you say you've got things like the medals and patches that people consider. You've also got the clothing. You have photographs and more of the ephemera that can be classed as militaria. And then you also have things like tents, mosquito nets. There are some weird things that come under it. Little like portable camping stoves, things like that. And it just covers everything. So military for me isn't the sort of like chain brand production things of like different camouflage patterns that are inspired by actual military. I always do the genuine, authentic stuff. So we'll have a little. I'll figure out how I turn my camera around. There we go. So we've got like East German stuff here, Swedish, American, so much going on over there. This covers basically everything from World War I up to present day really. You've got some American like UCP trousers and stuff over here, which are more familiar for you guys. But basically, as a general rule of thumb, if it's from your country, not so good unless it's old or like historically significant, like the Vietnam War or Iraq, things like that. But that's just a general rule of thumb. Or unless it's incredibly old, this can go all the way back to the Napoleonic era and things like that. So, what do people want to know? Because I can keep pacing about this all day. I can talk about how um, obviously there's sort of legalities to it. So certain camouflage patterns you can't sell in certain countries. You also can't do like swastikas, for example. You can't post that. You can't post that in full to eBay. I don't believe you can ship it at all to Germany. I stay away from most of the World War II stuff because there's a lot of, you know, iffy things about it, and the customer base is interesting. Um, so I tend to stick to more sort of like 1960s to present day, but I'm wanting to hone in on the more vintage side of it. Um,
So
there's a lot.
show us a really interesting piece, like something you find interesting.
Something that I find interesting. Um, all right. So this is a British Royal Marines dress jacket, but you see you've got like gold. Is it actually picking up that it's like a metal thread on the
Yeah.
parachute patches and stuff like that? So this is just a lovely little jacket, and this is more present day. And this isn't something that's going to sell, within a week or anything, but for collectors, wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. And you've got all these different medals here that all tell, a different story. So you've got a general service medal, then you've got ones from Iraq and Afghanistan, and then you've got ones for all the Queen's different jubilees, one for being in Sierra Leone. There's a whole, history there. That's someone's life, that's someone's career. Beg my pardon. So things like that is why I got into it, because I love the history of it. I think it's fascinating. Um, and there's just so much to learn about. And with Militaria, I suppose I'm sort of an everything seller, trying to focus more in on the clothing and everything. But I've done rank boards, so like things like this. You know, people want it. People want it because if you've got other people that are so enthused by the history of it, then they're happy to pay up. They're happy for this very obscure little item that you've got, and it's quite a good learning experience. The past week, I had a mixed palette come in, and I've had mosquito tents in there, which I wouldn't expect. I've got, let me find it if I could find it. Like I got a military grade beekeeper hat, you know. It's all these different things that it keeps me interested in the subject because it's just so expansive. And as far as camouflage patterns go, if you think that every country that has, say, a 50-year history has probably changed our camouflage pattern somewhat every decade, you've got 5 different camouflage patterns, but then you also have like a desert pattern, a winter pattern, all these different things before you even begin to look at the different uniform styles and things like that. So I'll go on to questions and stuff. Let me 1 second, Harry. I will get you a wide shot if I can. So we got the little dingy photo room in there, and then I've got essentially my bins over here. That is all winter stuff, and I am a seasonal, well, semi-seasonal seller. So all these bags and stuff there, that's all like winter jacket liners. The lovely little blankets, like Soviet Polish stuff from I think 1980s. These are all Czech. And then we've got the rails that are slowly being filled up. There's some more rails over there. Then we've got shelving, things like that. A load of boxes and stuff that I'm doing as job lots out of this pallet because I have a line. And then these black tubs are all hats and things like that, as are these gray bags. So I don't know if Russell or Becky put their hand up first, but I will go on to one of you two.
I have a quick question. The jacket, the military jacket. How do you photograph that? Do you put it on mannequin for the structure?
So I used to put it on a mannequin. In fact, my mannequin is still somewhere back there. But I've gone over to the flat lay, like pretty much everyone has, just because it's so much easier to shove it on there front, back. I can focus in on like the medals, the different buttons, things like that. But I probably prefer how it looks on a mannequin, but it's different. If you're honing in on just the collectible stuff and more of the antique things, then you can spend the time because, you know, that jacket's going to go for 100 to 200, if not more, depending on the age. But stuff like just these General Brown, although they're ceremonial and more prestigious than like camouflage jackets, they're modern day, so they're not going to go for more than about 20-30 bucks, depending on how much sort of like what's the word, garb you've got on it. So I go with flat lay. Flat lay, and then I have a little light box as well for like these are the bear skin like hat plumes. So this is just like a load of horsehair, but these go for about 30 bucks. It's interesting seeing what the different prices are for everything. So yeah. All right, Russell, how can I help? Unless Becky has anything more to say.
Oh no, I'm really impressed with what you got going on there.
Thank you.
This is way more than I thought it was going to be. So with that out of the way, my question is, when you're looking at those different military uniforms from different countries, are they all labeled kind of like the American, where you could tell what it is, or is that super difficult to get into that? And then secondly, how difficult is it to source this stuff?
So yeah, I'll start with like the dates and stamps and different IDs and stuff, because you're right, the American system is really nice and simple. You have it say large dash short, it tells you how long the leg's going to be, things like that. Now, most countries do follow that. Like if they're a NATO country, then they will follow a NATO sizing thing, and they'll say it's, you know, this, that, or the other. Like, hold on, I'll just go through some piles. So like this, that's just a British combat trouser. So it tells me what the leg is first, then the waist, and then like what the seat is. And then the contract number, that's always kind of difficult to date, but I know MTP's only come in since the 2010s, so that's quite a recent piece. Now, the Czech stuff here, that just has one stamp here that you can sort of make that out as an 89. So I'm going to say that's 1989. But learning all the different sizes that each country has can be quite difficult. Like the German ones here, you've got G52-0, which I could not tell you off the top of my head what that is. The Swedish one that I've got further back, if you can see, that says E108. Now that's going to be the length first as a letter, and then you're going to have it swap around into a chest size. Now, depending on what the letter is, that 100 is going to make all the difference. So if it's like, let's say C100, that's going to be about 100 centimeter chest. But if it's a D100, then that's about a 200 centimeter chest, because it multiplies, because it's also long. So there's there's things like that which I could only really pick up by working through it and have, you know, learned by doing it so long. I don't know that there's really a straightforward way. The NATO stuff is definitely the easiest, like the British and American stuff. That's really nice and easy. But also, like the more ceremonial dress jackets and things, they get tailored. So it might say it's 100 chests, but actually it's only an 80 chest because someone's had it, you know, brought in and things like that. So there's a bit of faffing around, but with enough sort of hands-on experience, I guess, you pick it up quite fast. Yeah. And the second question I am blanking on, so I'm gonna ask for that to be repeated. Thank you.
Oh, sourcing. How difficult is it to source that? Because it looks like you got a pretty good inventory going.
Yeah, so sourcing, it depends what you want to like niche down into, because you can definitely niche into the, let's say I'm sort of an everything seller. There's so much that you could just do, like just sleeping bags, and that would be it. For the more antique stuff, you have like the online auctions or actual auction houses that you can go to. You have estate sales, things like that. I live very rurally, and over here in the UK, we don't have the great big bins that you can just go and source from. So I have a wholesaler down in near London who works as a supplier. They buy it all in from the different countries, and then I can say, right, I want 20 of this jacket and things like that. So if it's more numerous, like the Czech liners were, that's really nice, easy to sort. But that also means that the price is going to go down because there's like 10,000 of these somewhere in a warehouse. So, you know, they're good as a like bread and butter item, but for, I guess, the more collectible and sought after pieces that will take a little longer to sell, then you do have to be on the ball with auctions and things like that. So that's where it's a bit more difficult to like hone in on, but it depends where you live, and what your like network is really. So yeah, it varies.
Yeah, and then the last question I have is, you say you do mostly clothing and this stuff. How do the like utensils and shovels and things of that nature, you know, the stuff that they would carry into the field, how does that stuff do?
That stuff does well if you're willing to ship it. So if I don't think Larry's here today, but Larry, he'd be all over that because he knows, you know, what size boxes you need for this and that. That's mostly the stuff that I'm lotting up at the minute, because we still have like the old sort of like fishing tackles shops and things like that, which will just stock shovels and the more, let's say, field gear sort of stuff. So that's not really my range. I'd probably like to get into boots and those sort of things because they do have a good price tag, and usually one box will sort of fit all the sizes for that. But like this has just come in. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's like an old sort of brass trumpet or foghorn or something. this is going to be really awkward for me to ship. So I will probably lock that up with a bunch of other little things that are awkward. It's going to clank on the floor, that are awkward to ship. And I'll just avoid that. If you can spend the time and the resources on the boxes, then that's fine, you're good. But I'd say you want a brick and mortar store for that sort of stuff. And like the pouches as well. I've got a whole bunch of those, but I don't really want a whole bunch of those because I'm going to spend £3 on shipping. I'm going to spend the price for a box, and it's only going to be about £10 in total. So it's not really worth my time to photograph and list it. But again, very seller to seller. Maybe you can really excel in that and you have like, boxes for 1 cent or something, and it's great.
Well, I appreciate it, Jake. Thank you so much
You're
for
most welcome. Most welcome. Right, I'll have a quick look in the chat before I jump to Carolyn. Who's into buying these pieces? It completely depends. So you have people that want like outdoor gear. Over in the States, you'd have people that want the hunting gear and things like that. Some people just like durable, because it is all very good quality stuff that you can get very cheap, even, as a customer. But it varies. There are so many variables in this. I'm sorry to keep coming back and saying that. But it depends if you want just some nice stuff for like bushcraft and hiking, or if you are someone that's really obsessed about like the history of 1987 for whatever reason, you might think, wow, I don't care what country this is from, what it is, it's from 1987. I'm going to get it. Fantastic. So it really varies. You also, this is sort of a caveat or a detour, you have people that do reproduction and theater stuff with them. Reproduction stuff does occasionally come in with these like mixed palettes and things like that. I don't deal with reproduction because it'll be sod's law that you put out, right, you think it's an authentic German jacket, for example, but then it turns out it was actually made in 2009 and it's a reproduction of, something from 40 years ago, but it will go to a collector rather than someone that wants it for theater use and things like that. And they'll say, well, what's going on? So I avoid that entirely. I just stick with the genuine stuff and leave it at that. But the buyer range really vastly depends. Camouflage tends to go more to people that just want like casual wear and stuff that's good for hunting, hiking, whatever. But the more ceremonial stuff, that's definitely more for collectors and things like that. Historically, you've had companies like Gucci, I think maybe Balenciaga, that have brought up whole big like warehouses of dead stock stuff, and then they put like a Supreme stamp across it. In fact, I swear I've got like these East German ones. These were brought up by Gucci a little while back, and they did that as a run. That's not something that I like to sell. I wouldn't consider that necessarily authentic military surplus because it's then being altered afterwards. The same for people that will buy up dead stock and they'll do it for reworking. So there's a company over here called, I think, Reworked 251, something like that, that have taken a load of quilted liners and turned them into handbags. Not for me, but technically that would still be military depending on where, you draw the line and things like that. So that's a bit of a ramble, but there we are. Occasionally you will have people that buy them for museums and things like that. I've got a guy at the minute who wants to buy a whole bunch of Marine jackets for a cadet group that he's tutoring and things like that, and they want dress jackets for when they go doing like charity events and things like that. So the customer base is expansive. And thank you, Jamie. Thank you very, very kindly. Right, Carolyn, how can I help?
Hi, Jake. This is so interesting. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Most welcome.
What part of your inventory do you find has the best sell-through rate? Is it the uniforms or the other items like the sleeping bags, things like that?
So depending on the season, I would say the more bulk items are great. That's why I've got the whole palette there full of liners, because last year these did really well. I was selling about 4 or 5 of these a day, from sort of October through till January, February. But a lower price, so they're like 10 to 15 bucks, something like that. So as far as bestseller goes, on paper it would be those, but for price tag, definitely the more collectible stuff. Uh, you're going to get a lot more value for it. You just have to be willing to let it sit there for a little while and see how it gets on.
What are some of your more unusual pieces that you've gotten?
I will grab it out because there's. Hold on. Oh, you're gonna have to bear with me while I get this out. This is where I question sometimes the morals of selling surplus, not in like any too weird a way. Hold on, I'll put it down. Give me 1 second. All right. So this here is an East German, like a hazmat suit, essentially. Now, I've had about 5 of these in stock over the years, and every time the buyer username has been like Latex Lover 47. Now, you do what you want with it. If you're going to pay me, that's fine. But I don't want returns, refunds. I don't want any hassle with this sort of stuff.
Right,
So
right.
that's definitely a more unusual piece for me anyway. Just because you sort of think like, oh yeah, preppers and things like that, they'd want this, and some do, but there is a weird fetish community that goes off surplus and things like that. I also have gas masks from Poland that they used to use asbestos as the filter. So those are sort of an interesting one to sell. Definitely just like collectible only. Let me think. I got these are quite neat. So these are like little Yugoslavian decontamination kits, again from the Cold War, and they come with a whole bunch of stuff in case you had, some kind of nuclear fallout. And they have these little glass what are they called, ampules, something like that, that they have. I'm trying to think what the actual name is. I only know the slang as poppers. But again, that's a weird fetish thing. So I can't really sell that as is. There's definitely people out there that would go, wow, that's a really interesting history. But I'm kind of stuck with those. So those are the 2 items that are really coming to mind, just because they've left a bit of a scar, on my soul.
That's interesting you say that. Now, like a lot of people will get into a certain niche because they just kind of treat it as widgets and they don't really have an interest in it, but they just know that it sells well, it's abundant, they can easily sell it. What made you get into this niche? What is it, a passion of yours, or did you just kind of stumble into it, or how did that happen?
So for me, it was a passion that I couldn't ever see being a career, because I thought, right, I love history, fantastic, subject, but I didn't really want to be like a museum curator. I didn't want to be a history teacher, anything like that. So when COVID came, the winter prior, I'd been looking at trying to get Italian greatcoat that was all wool, and they were going for like 80 bucks, and I could buy 5 of them for 100. And so COVID came in, and I thought, well, as something to do, I'll just, I'll get the coat that I want and I'll sell the other 4 on. And basically it snowballed from there. And then I thought, well, I do like the selling aspect of it. I like selling to other collectors because they appreciate the history around it as well. And every now and then I get to pinch something that I like.
Do you ever give any presentations for everything that you have, or any kind of demonstrations about anything locally, or has anybody ever asked you for
No,
that?
no, we have like summer fairs over here that I've been intending to get to for, well, since I started really. But this during the renovations for this whole shed has just dragged on so long. So it's only really been the last 6-8 weeks maybe that I've been able to give eBay my whole effort and get things organized and actually not just in piles. So next year I hope, you know, to sort of expand into more community things, do the fairs, maybe do demonstrations and things like that, because there's a lot of interesting history to it, and that's where I you know, enjoy it the most.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. I really found this fascinating. Thank you.
Most welcome, most welcome.
Pause you for just a minute because not everybody on YouTube gets to hear all of interesting Jake. They have to be in the group to hear the rest. So just 1 second here. They can join us on Resale Revenue Facebook group if they want to hear the rest.